Grief can be heavy, but faith gives us hope. Welcome to a Catholic Journey podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Diaz. Join me as we explore how to lean on God in hard times, embrace the beauty of the Catholic faith, and walk this journey together. Welcome to a new episode of A Catholic Journey. Today, I want to talk about God moments in our life, how God speaks to us, how God communicates to us. Our moments in our life that seem to be mere coincidence, actually God talking to us or showing us something or nudging us. When I look back at my life, I can definitely pinpoint moments where things have happened, people have entered my life or have left my life, where I know that it was God leading me in those moments, protecting me in those moments. And in the last 3 years, I've definitely had moments where, without a doubt, God was revealing himself to me, talking to me, showing me what I needed to see or what I needed to hear. And I talked about in my first episode when God spoke to me and led me to be with him in church and to spend time with him there as I was in the depths of my grieving, right? And that moment, that time where this was happening was the catalyst that led me to dive deeper into my faith, to open up my Bible for the first time, to buy a Bible for the first time, to want to learn what my faith actually means. But since then, other things have happened that have just been so mind-blowing to me that I want to share them because they're so special. And maybe if you hear these moments, it will help you open up your heart a little bit and notice the God-led moments in your life. So before my parents died, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had been a stay-at-home mom for a couple of years, and I had learned calligraphy probably around COVID time, so around 2020. I picked up calligraphy and I started my own little business. And after my parents died, I didn't really do much with it. I just felt this tug in my heart that whole first year, like, okay, I do this artwork, but I want to do something that honors my parents in some way, that helps me to keep their memory alive. And I kept struggling with this idea for months. And it was in 2023 that I remember I was standing in my dining room. My husband was there with me, and I was telling him this idea of mine, right? Like, I don't know. I want to do something to honor my parents' names. I don't know what to do. Should I change my business name? Not so much for him to answer me, but just for him to listen. And as I'm talking and as I'm saying all these things, all of a sudden, I hear this gentle voice whisper in my ear, Mimi and Manuel. It took my breath away. I was stunned. And in that exact moment, I said, oh my God, yes, babe, I'm going to name my business Mimi and Manuel. This is what I have to do. And the crazy part was that I have never in my entire life of being the daughter of my parents, have I ever called them Mimi and Manuel. So Mimi is my mom's nickname, and her real name is Guillermina, and my dad's name is Manuel. So when this voice whispered this into my ear, this was not my own thought. I am certain of that, 1,000%. And that was kind of like the starting point of all that has happened since, in terms of my business, in terms of my life creatively. And I want to even say it has also been a starting point for my faith in a lot of ways, because I want to share it more and share all the things that I've learned. So that was the first big moment where I literally heard God whisper to me. And something that I want to highlight about this too is I am 1,000% certain that God spoke to me in that moment. And it was a whisper. He didn't make the clouds thunder. Lightning didn't strike from the sky. A big booming voice didn't come out of thin air. It was a whisper. And that is all that my heart needed to hear him in that moment. God gives us what we need. God shows us what we can handle. And sometimes this moment that we need with him doesn't have to be a big booming voice in the sky. Sometimes He needs to be gentle with us, and a whisper is what we need. And I literally can hear it in my head when I think back to that moment. It was just so beautiful, and it was so simple, and it wasn't this big grandiose moment. It was just a whisper. And so that led me to do all the things, right? I changed my business name. I opened a new Instagram account. I got a website made. And so fast forward later that year, I wanted to make a journal. And there was a tug on my heart that kept saying, you should do a grief journal. And I kept saying, no, I don't want to do a grief journal because I don't want to be that girl. I don't want to focus on my grief. Yes, it's a part of my life and it's intertwined with who I am, but I don't want to be that girl. I was so resistant to this idea, and I don't know why. I kept Googling ways to do this, and nothing was meeting the standards of what I wanted to create, if that makes sense. So I was seeing how to use POD sites and how to get things done in a cheap way, for a lack of a better explanation. But I was also very certain that if I was going to create something and it was going to have my parents' name on it, Mimi and Manuel, that whatever I was going to bring into creation, whatever I was going to create, had to be of quality, because I didn't want the first impression of this new business I was creating that was in honor of my parents to be something that lacked the quality. It wasn't until the following year, in February, I remember I was on Instagram just scrolling, as I would do, and I was checking Instagram stories. And all of a sudden, this sponsored ad came up for a company that was promoting a print school. And I'm like, print school? I've literally never heard of that. And I've been Googling how to print journals for like months and months and months. So I click on this sponsored ad, and it was for an online course of how to print paper products that are of quality. So I go on this website and I'm looking up all the information, and I see the price tag for this course. And I'm like, I don't really want, it's pretty expensive. I don't know if I want to spend this much money on this course. So I get out of it and I go back into Instagram. And the next slide that pops up in the stories is another sponsored ad from the same company. But this sponsored ad is a call to action for interns. And I'm like, they're looking for interns. What could they possibly want interns for? So of course, I click on that ad and I go on the website. And one of the positions for this internship was video editors. And the compensation for completing the internship was full access to the printing course once the internship was over. Well, if I didn't mention this before, I used to be a video editor for over 10 years in the television space. So I knew I was qualified for this position. Long story short, I got the internship. But here's the crazy part that I didn't mention at the top of this story. The day that I found this company that I hadn't found after months and months and months of searching how to print paper products, this company that I found not only happened to be a Christian-led company, which is something I had prayed about prior to this. I remember asking God, as I build this new business and I don't know what it's going to be, just lead me to people who are of faith. I want to surround myself with people of faith. I want to build my faith, and to do that, I want to be surrounded by people of faith. And so the fact that this company is a Christian-led company was amazing. But the day that I found these sponsored ads was February 26th, which happened to be the 1-year anniversary of the day that my dad passed away. So when I realized that, I immediately knew that this was a God moment. He was leading me to this course to make this journal. And I am just so convicted that, okay, you found this course and you put in the work that you needed to do, right, to get access to this course. You have to make a grief journal. You have to create something of substance that's going to help people. And so I started following the stuff I was learning in the course, and I started creating my outline for this grief journal. And to be honest, I didn't even know how I was going to make this in terms of the content inside of it. And I just kept asking God, like, how am I going to make this? What is this going to be? And little by little, I just felt the whole flow and format of what this grief journal needed to look like come to me. And that was almost 2 years ago now. And the design for my journal is made. I am, in fact, making a grief journal. I am in the process of getting all the copy editing checked and double checked before we send it out to the printer. And it has been a long journey, mostly because of my procrastination and just allowing myself, something that I said to myself when I dove in to make this grief journal was, I am not going to rush this. I am going to give this the time and the space that it needs. And when God is ready for me to make this and actually print this, then that's when it will happen. So it's in the works. It's not printed yet, but it is happening. But that for sure was just such a God-led moment for me. And I guess you can look back and say, well, it's a coincidence that on your dad's anniversary of his death, you found this printing company that will give you literally the course of how to print a paper product. And it's a coincidence that the very slide after that course ad happened to be an internship so that you can get the course for free. And they just so happen to need a video editor, which is what you used to do for over 10 years as your career before being a stay-at-home mom. I mean, I guess you could look at that as a coincidence, but that's a lot of coincidence that have to line up exactly the way that they did for the message to be received by me. So if that's not a God-led moment, I really don't know what is. So yeah, that's been a huge one for me, and it still gives me chills every time I think about it. The third big God-led moment in my life, at least in the last 3 years, has been the calling on my heart to get my confirmation done. And that's been a huge one because that moment has just led me to where I am right now. And it's so hard to explain, and I'm really going to try to do my best. First, I want to give some context to this moment in my life. So I was baptized in the Catholic Church when I was a baby, and I completed my first communion when I was about 8 or 9 years old. And for whatever reason, I couldn't tell you why, but I never completed my confirmation, and it was never anything that I even thought to ask my parents about. And when I was in my 20s, I was about 27 when I got engaged. You know, my fiance, well, my husband and I knew then that we wanted to get married in the Catholic Church. So I just assumed at that time that what I needed to do, more out of obligation than out of desire, was to get my confirmation done. And I remember I went to my church that I wanted to get married in, and I asked them about the information to get my confirmation done. And I told them I was getting married in their church, and they said, "We'll talk to the priest who's going to marry you, and he will give you more information." So that's what I did. Well, to make a long story short, for the sake of time, I spoke to the priest who was going to marry me, and he told me that I didn't need to do that. At that time, like I said, I didn't lead a faithful life. I was just happy that it was one less thing that I had to do. So I took his word for it. We got married in the Catholic Church, and I never thought about my confirmation again, ever. So now, fast forward to 2024. It's about the end of summer. I've now been married, 16 years or so, and I'm sitting in my garage, as I do. My workspace is in my garage. I don't know what I was working on, but I just all of a sudden became so overwhelmed with this feeling in my heart. And something just telling me, you really need to get your confirmation done. You need to do this. And like I said, this was not a desire that I ever had. So I knew this was coming from somewhere else. This was God telling me, you need to get your confirmation done. And instantly I pick up my phone and I text my friend Audrey, of all people. And I mainly texted her for 2 reasons. One, because she is a woman very deep in her faith and sort of my go-to person, right, at this point for all questions about faith as I'm diving into my Bible and learning the Bible in a year and all the things. So I texted her because I knew she would get it, and also for accountability. Those were the two instant reasons that she came to my mind to share this with her. Literally the minute that I felt this put on my heart. So I sent her this text message that read something like, "Fun fact, I was married in the Catholic Church, but I never did my confirmation." And her initial reaction was, I think, a shocked emoji face, if I'm not mistaken, because she didn't understand how that could be. And I had no answer for her. But her next message literally sent chills down my spine because she had the information of the upcoming OCIA course at our parish. That was literally happening that fall. So the fall of 2024. And in that moment, I was like, God wanted me to text you because you had the information. Because he knew that if I had to search this on my own, I would have procrastinated. I probably would have kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off until it would have been too late to sign up. So I got the information from her. I called my parish, gave them my information, and a few days later, I was contacted by my OCIA teacher. And OCIA used to be RCIA, and at the top of my head, I can't think of what either acronym stands for, but the gist of it is the adult confirmation courses into the faith. And I will post all the details and definitions in the show notes. I just don't have it in front of me right now because I did not prepare properly, apparently. So my teacher, that's going to be my teacher for this course, reaches out to me. And we chatted, and he had sent me a text message, and then we get on the phone. And when I speak to this man, I cannot explain to you the fire that this man has for our faith. And it was in that very moment that I understood completely why I had waited so long to complete my confirmation and why specifically in that moment God led me to do my confirmation, why he was pushing me so hard. It was to lead me to this man and to the group of people who I now call my dear, dear friends. I remember I go to my first class, and it wasn't just me and the other candidate. It was two candidates and a group of other parishioners who have come together to form this OCIA group and to be partners with us on this faith walk to completing our confirmation. The people that I have encountered in this class that I'm in have been so God-sent in my life that there is no other explanation except that God was waiting for me to be in the space that I'm in, to lead me to these people, to have an open heart so that I can, one, encounter this group of people, and two, receive the love and the message and the faith that they are offering to me with an open heart. I just feel so blessed to be in their presence every week, to learn from them, to share with them. There is no other way to explain it but that it has been divinely curated and created by the hand of God, who put us all in this place together. And the fire that I have received from them, the love, the deeper love that I'm getting for my faith, wanting to learn more, wanting to be closer to my faith every time that I'm with them and learning from them. I know that if I had been with a different group of people with a different vibe, I would have lost that fire. It would have felt like a chore. And I think God knew what I needed in order to continue to flame this fire that I'm growing for him. And it has been the best God-led moment. And I truly believe that each of these moments, one has led to the other, has led to the other. And I am just so blessed. And I'm so thankful that my heart is open enough to see these things and to acknowledge them and to know that they are from God. And this podcast, like, what on earth am I doing on a podcast? And it just leads me to this Bible verse that I want to share from John 10:27. My sheep hear my voice. I know them and they follow me. I've just felt so blessed and so thankful in these last 3 years that God has helped guide me and direct me to where He wants me to be. And I do not know where the next step leads, but I am taking it in faith, and I invite you to do the same. If this episode touched you in any way, if you have a God-led moment that you want to share, I invite you to comment on this podcast or send me a message. I will put my information in the show notes for you. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope to meet you in the next episode. And remember, where Jesus leads the way, we are called to follow. Thank you for joining me on a Catholic journey. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It helps others find the podcast and be part of this journey. Until next time, remember, where Jesus leads the way, we are called to follow.